I'd rather regret the risk that didn't work out than the chances I didn't take at all. Simone Biles. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I am your hostess, Shamiza Ali, and it is truly a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Good evening to everyone joining us on Facebook and on YouTube. Tonight's topic would be accomplishments and challenges over the past 3 years in the education sector and the government's vision for 2024 and beyond. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, Guyana, and the Caribbean. Funding support is by well-known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Our panelists tonight are Professor Muniram Budu.
Hello.
Good evening. Our moderator for tonight is Dr. Tara Singh.
Good evening.
And our other panelists, Professor Narayan Prasad and Dr. Ganga Ramdas.
Hello.
Good evening. Welcome. Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you, Shamiza, and the panelists.
I'm so happy to see all of you this evening. Our guest tonight is the Minister of Education, the Honorable, please welcome Priya Manickchand. Dr. Tara?
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Shamiza, and welcome to our panelists. And welcome to our Honorable Minister of Education, Honorable Priya Manickchand. We were trying to get her several weeks or a few months ago, but she was so tied up with her work. So we are very happy to have her today. This is the first program of the year 2024. So you're setting the trend, the pattern for the rest of the year. Today, before I invite you to make your introductory remarks, I just want to recap quickly. Your ministry is playing a very pivotal role in the social and economic transformation of Ghana. You're laying the groundwork. Education is the key to the structural transformation of Ghana. I think this year you're allocated 43.2% more funds than the previous year, 2023, $125.2 billion. And of a total, Guyana's total budget, $1.146 trillion. Um, Honorable Minister, I would like you in introductory to talk about some of the key components of your ministry, what you focus on, what you achieve last year in general terms, then we can go into specific. But one of the things I would like you is a teacher training program, qualified teachers against non-qualified. That has been a perennial problem, and people have been asking about, saying that there's so many untrained teachers that affect student performance, etc. How you are doing in that area? But generally, if you can go ahead and give a little glimpse into your past and your vision for this coming year and beyond.
Yes. Well, thank you very much and Happy New Year to everybody. I feel very privileged to be your first program, on your first program for the year. And I don't think education is only the pillar for ensuring social transformation. I actually think it is the one sector that will determine what we look like in the medium and long term, because we could build out all the infrastructure, we could do all of that, but it will still be peopled by the children who are coming out of our schools. So how they're used, how they're improved, how the country responds to worldwide uh, competition or threats or pandemics or anything else will depend on the people we have here and we have in our care at the Ministry of Education, um, the children of Guyana, the next generation really, and the young people of Guyana. So I really think it's we have a bigger burden than most persons. And thankfully, an enjoyable burden of building out what Guyana is going to look like by helping to mold and craft what the people who will occupy and reside here will look like. And so we think it's a huge responsibility and not one we take lightly at all. We have been, so we're coming out of COVID, and I think people forget that. It's very easy to forget the hardship we had during the COVID pandemic, and harder than most countries because our online infrastructure, internet infrastructure, was not prepared at all for that. I know no country really was, but we were particularly unprepared, especially given our geographic realities with the hinterland being unconnected and so on. To give you a very stark picture of why it still matters, the children who are writing NGSA in May this year, what you know as the common entrance, are children who were in grade two when they stopped school, and they stopped school for 2 years. That's foundational years that we are still seeing the effects of. Um, so we're still dealing with, in terms of the students before us, the loss that they had in those 2 years. And it's real, and it's not something we can pretend didn't happen or reverse overnight. But even having those challenges, I think I'm very proud of where the ministry has come in this short period. Um, we are focused on access, better access across levels, quality, improving quality, making sure there are lifelong learning opportunities, and uh, watching how efficient monitoring and evaluation, how efficient our system is, and trying to make sure that it responds to needs. And then in those broad categories, we have a lot of subcategories. So on the issue of access, we are came very close last year to, well, not very close, but we brought the country several steps forward in terms of making access to secondary education something that is more likely to be a reality, by uh, building and finishing a school in Region Two, a secondary school, large, and these are large schools. One at Good Hope on the East Coast, one at Cabra on the highway. Um, and we're currently building out right now as we speak, the Northwest Secondary in Region 1, Hosororo Region 1, Quebana Region 1, Tushen at Region 3. We're going to start reading Hoop and Names in Region 3 also, two different schools shortly, sometime within the course of this year. In Region 4, we're going to be building one at Prospect, in Region 6 at Oriala, in Region 7 at Jawala, in Region 8 at Kopenang, Region 9 at, there's a school being constructed right now at Karasbay, and Region 10, we're going to be reconstructing a brand new school. Well, constructing a brand new school, but it would be the Christianberg Multilaterals. It's a reconstruction because we're pulling down the whole old school. Um, and that would, right now as we speak, in Georgetown, the St. Mary's, Christchurch, St. George's, and North Rheinveld are being built or rebuilt because some of them were destroyed by fire. And so it's a massive access program that we have where we're trying very hard to make sure there's access to every single child, regardless of whether they live, where they live, to secondary education. We've already achieved primary education universally across Guyana, but because we're developing so rapidly, and the Ministry of Housing is giving thousands of house lots, and we have new communities rising up, we actually have to plan for primary schools there. And so this year, we'll be beginning six big, large primary schools in various regions. Rec Dorsey in Region 3, which is Parfait, the Parfait Harmony area. In Region 9, at in the Letem type area, we have at Tapachinga, we'll have a primary school, and at various other places along the coastland. So we're looking at making sure we have seats for all our children to occupy. And then even as we do that, we're simultaneously looking to change the quality and improve on the quality of education we deliver once they come into the classroom and occupy those seats. And regarding quality, we're looking at teacher training, making sure more of our teachers are trained and more teachers enter the system. So it's both quality and quantity. We'll have more teachers in the system and we will have more trained teachers in the system. And that is because we expanded the program to an online program. So we have both online and in person, depending on where people live. And it's a hybrid program that allows a large number of persons to access at the same time. So before last year, Guyana has only ever been able to graduate at its maximum 535 persons from the teacher training college. Last year, we did just under 1,800 persons. This year, the numbers are going to be very similar. So we have more trained teachers as well as more teachers in the system. In fact, right now, we have for the first time in the history of our country, 99% of our teachers trained or in training currently. And we would have a really, really small percentage in the schools that are untrained. And those are really persons who are, for example, they're gonna retire at 55 and they're already 50. And training takes 2 to 4 years depending on what they're doing. It's a bit unfair to ask them to train now. So there will be those persons who continue. They've been teaching for 30, 40 years. So methodology and so on might not be something we want to be training them in at this point. And they already know the content. So that would make up the 1% that's not trained. Towards quality, improving quality, we're also trying to make sure we change or we improve on the resources we give. So all children have all the textbooks they need or will have all the textbooks they need in this year. Exercise books are different quality and more also things like lab materials and chemicals and so on. There's going to be no shortage of those this year. And then we have so that there are a number of things we're trying to do to change out the quality of
Yeah,
education we have.
yeah, that's fine. That's a great introduction. Before I pass you on to Professor Maniram Budu, I just want to ask you something. This has been raised by quite a few people. I think the last time we spoke, I mentioned about it. School welfare officers, how are you doing with that?
Dr. Tara, let's
Yeah,
hold that question for a little bit. I think Minister just step away. We can go ahead and have a general discussion. In the meantime,
yeah.
she'll get back.
Okay, Dr. Professor Budu, you want to make any general comment about the budget and the provision for education in particular?
Well, I think that the government is trying to satisfy their manifesto, but I think they're going beyond that. If you look at the budget that they presented, I think it was on Monday, they have all the elements, in my view, correct. They have a lot of infrastructure built out, continuing. Education is given, you said about 40 something percent more. So they are moving in the right direction, and that will allow Guyanese to have a high quality life, right? Uh, Using the resources that we have. And so this ministry is doing pretty well, but I think they have to move on beyond that, and that's why I'm going to ask the minister some
Mm,
questions in relation
yeah.
to the future.
Okay. Professor Narain Prasad, your comments, initial
Yeah,
comments.
no, I agree with Professor Budu, in the sense that I've seen that the budget, they have a greater allocation towards education, which is lagging somewhat, especially with the technological advances within the country, and as well as national development expectations. So it is commendable to see that there is an investment in education that is worthy of the country's policies, or the policies of the government.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Dr. Ganga, your
Yeah,
initial comment.
our minister has given a good introduction on access and equity in the system. Our accomplishments are outstanding. Uh, Overall enrollment at the secondary level is about 2/3, 61%. There is room for improvement on that. And we're outstanding with regard to primary education, about 88%. And our achievements in the post-secondary area is also outstanding, about 62%. As you go up through the pipeline, higher education, there is a lot of scope for improvement. So looking at the whole system, I think we have made significant improvements, and we would have a challenge to match the education with the jobs that are forthcoming. So those are my preliminary remarks, Dr.
Okay,
Tara.
thank you, Dr. Ganga. Professor Budu, the minister is back on screen so you can make your observation and ask a question.
Okay, thank you very much. Minister Manickchand, I'm glad to meet you. There's
Yes,
no
and you.
doubt that much has been accomplished in the education sector by your ministry under your leadership in the last 3 years. I must commend you for that effort. The emphasis appears to be on building out the infrastructure, equipment, and more access. The gut of any education, quality education system at least, is well qualified professional teachers, and you talked about that in your intro a bit. Curriculum that is both adaptive and rigorous, and high quality teaching. You might have professional teachers, but the high teaching is still not high quality. I scanned the 2024 budget just before coming on this program and could not find any information on allocations for teacher training and curriculum development. Can you provide our viewers with information on these?
Right. So budgets and two things. One, it can appear as though our emphasis is on infrastructure because, they're by nature large, large projects, both financially as well as, an imposing structure going up. But no, we're insisting that even as we provide access, that our quality changes for the better. And so it's a simultaneous process. We're not doing one or the other. Um, there you won't see in the budget uh in the budget speech you won't see allocations for. Is something happening?
For teacher
Training,
training and curriculum development.
training and curriculum development.
Allocations for teacher training, if you're looking at, and curriculum development, you won't see that, but it's actually there. So our curriculum is and has a
I think it's
Um, yes.
Dr. Tara, we're having some technical difficulties with Minister Manickchand. If you guys want to continue the conversation while we try to get her back.
Okay, we'll leave that. Let's go back to Professor Narayan. Any further comments on the idea of curriculum development and
Yeah. Well, one of the things that the minister mentioned is that more teachers are going to be trained. But training in Guyana, when I was a teacher there, it was like a one-time affair. But
No.
in these days, you
Mhm.
have to have continuous
Professional
development.
development.
Right.
Right. And so two things. The quality of our training is still very high, and that's evident by the performance of teachers, not only locally, because our teachers do perform locally. Of course, it's always far more attractive and sensational to publish the poor teacher, the teacher who performs poorly or behaves badly in the classroom. But our results in the region, so comparatively speaking, Guyana is performing better academically, even in terms. So we, in addition to doing the most outstanding students in overall in science and humanities and business and TVET and so on, we're also percentage wise the number of students who passed with 60% and more, the number of students who got grade ones. And so we're still outperforming the rest of the Caribbean region. But outside of so our teachers are doing fairly well in Guyana, but also evidencing the fact that the teacher training program is still strong is the fact that teachers go to the Bahamas, to all the Caribbean countries, to the United States, and they perform very, very well. I think one of our areas that can use improvement, one of our weak areas, if we were to say, if we were to name it, would be our monitoring and evaluation. Why is the teachers who are trained right here are doing better in countries that have a stronger M&E program or an M&E in the ministry? And we are building out as we speak. So it's not the one-time training. I agree with you. That's his anachronistic now in this age. It is the continuous professional development. In fact, every profession has that, and that's something we have to work towards. We are working towards looking at licensing teachers as making them the professionals that they are. And in Guyana, for a doctor to get his medical license renewed, he had to have shown that he did at least 6 continuing medical education programs called CMEs. Lawyers have continuing programs. Teachers are a really honorable profession. Why would we not have CPDs for teachers? And so NSERD, the National Center for Education Research and Development, is building out the continuous professional development courses that we want our teachers to take. We're actually creating a management academy where we hope that teachers will graduate from that and become managers in schools. And those who are already in schools will benefit from the training there. So I agree with you. It can't be a one time um, training ever. We also hope that and have introduced programs that allow teachers themselves to upgrade across the board. So in 2020, in the midst of COVID, we introduced Profuturo for free, which is well, we introduced it for free, but it wasn't for free. A Spanish program or a program from Spain, which has various levels that allow teachers to train in both innovation as well as ICT. And I'm very pleased to say that 70% of our teachers had signed up and had done well. 100% had signed up, but 70% had completed training in either one or both of the components of that. So I've seen an appetite for training and continuous training that we couldn't have known about before because we didn't have the opportunities before. We have something called Goal now, the Guyana Online Academy of Learning, which is a medium through which Guyanese teachers and other Guyanese can access higher education at renowned universities in the world. And we're working right now with about 18 universities in Asia, Europe, the Caribbean, Africa. And we have more than 3,000 teachers out of our 10,000 who are actually pursuing masters or PhDs on that program, and another 2,000 teachers who are doing certificate programs, including things like teaching reading, literacy, and other education related programs. And then we have a set of teachers also, I think numbering 1,500 or 1,800 who are doing programs that have nothing to do with education or appear to have nothing to do with education proper, like psychology and other programs that are not traditionally associated with education. So I think both that organized continuous professional development from the ministry that is mandated when we get to the place of having teachers licensed to go on to teach, as well as providing opportunities where teachers themselves can access various types of training, would be a good place to be at. And I think we're fairly there.
Mhm.
Now,
Thank
Minister, I just want to add something to what you were saying here. Finland, which is probably one of the top places for
Yeah.
education, the teachers teach there 600 contact hours and over 900 hours per year in professional development. In the US, 1,100 hours is spent in the classroom. So just give you an idea of how much professional development go into first class education.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Now, the other question I have, AI is already impacting our lives, and quantum computing is knocking at our doors. The current education system that Guyana has, and much of the world have for that matter, was established in the Industrial Revolution to produce factory workers. Over the years, we have tinkered with this system with very little success. Uh, in the 21st century, with AI and quantum computing, we have to reimagine education to foster creativity, innovation, lifelong learning, and well being. A few countries have already taken the lead. India, for example, is rolling out the Indian knowledge system. Each country, however, has to reimagine its own knowledge system, prepare its citizens for the challenges and opportunities for the 21st century. Is Guyana working on any such knowledge system? If so, please share with us what you can.
Is Guyana working on?
A knowledge system, right, that will encompass AI and say quantum computing. This is going to change the way education will occur.
So this is, as you know, very new in the world, and I think it's with us to stay. And I think education systems around the world are going to have to find space to accommodate AI, and it's always better to be prepared for any kind of change rather than have it happen to a system. Already, we see our children using the tools that AI has for all kinds of research and even presentations. And so I think it's here with us. How we incorporate that. I don't think the question is whether we will. I don't think we can escape incorporating AI into our various classrooms. How we incorporate that would be something that we're currently examining. We're about to make some of our schools entirely smart. So the smart boards in every classroom, each student outfitted with devices, internet and access to all those classrooms and schools. And we're working with various companies to try to make that a reality. How we incorporate AI into that process is something that's currently under consideration. But even without us introducing it formally into the schools, we have some AIs that are specific to Guyana.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Minister, I'm not going to pursue this any further, is that if you are going to use the current system you have and introduce AI and quantum computing, it will not work. I mean, that's well established now because
Well,
the
what,
system
what
is
is
not
the
there
current
fit.
system?
Sorry?
What's the current system you're defining?
The current system you have in Guyana and much of the world is a system that is based on producing factory workers. You just put knowledge in their head and let them produce stuff, right? To go outside. It is not producing an environment for creativity, innovation, and so on, right? And you've seen, for example, AI, what COVID did with people staying home, right, and working from home. You have a lot of depression, health issues, and so on. I don't want to pursue that because that's an argumentative case. Because here we just want you to tell us what you're doing. So I have one more question for you.
I'm okay
Do
with
you
arguments.
teach Guyanese history that includes the colonialists, how the borders with neighboring countries were delineated, slavery and indentured service in Guyana, not also in the Caribbean, and so on? If so, is it a dedicated textbook in Guyana on this?
So the Guyana, the entire region, our exit exams are based on the CARICOM. We're competing with the CARICOM countries, and so our exams are based a little bit wider than just Guyana. So there is history for CXC, but it's not based on the curriculum, and the content is not only about Guyana. A large part of it is, but a lot of it is the shared history, the people who came, the
Mhm.
Amerindians, the first people, the Mayas and the Aztecs, and so on. So it wouldn't just be about Amerindians in Guyana. From first form to third form, or grade 7 to 9 in high school, it's a little bit more concentrated on Guyana. And yes, um, our curriculum does cater for some of what you mentioned, the border issue and so on. But I have to say that prior to last year, when it became a real issue, it became very clear to us that we hadn't made this, for example, the Venezuela Guyana border controversy, that we
Mm.
hadn't made that a big focus in any of our curricula. So we wrote um, material that we sent out. But the team at NSERT is currently looking at how we teach that particular topic um, to not only our high school children, but age appropriately from primary school coming up. So to answer you specifically, a lot of our history lessons, and we do history incorporated into social studies. I'm getting a feedback. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
No,
Like,
yeah, it's come from somewhere we don't know.
All
Yeah.
right. Let's move on now to Dr. Ganga Ramdas. Your
Yes.
question or clarification from the Honorable Minister.
Yes, just an overall comment. I'm impressed with the differentiated strategy that minister has outlined variously and overall and regionally as well. The resources are apparently being developed to deliver the curriculum on the recent events around the world. um, there is a great need for a multidimensional curriculum so we can have a different perspective and learn more in terms of what we didn't know or what we took for granted, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Ukraine, and so forth. There's an urgent need to have that education. I found myself having to resort to my liberal arts research skills and update myself. I've looked at what's happening in India, and there's a conversation now between the people and government in terms of education and jobs. So I would like some perspectives from the minister, from our minister here, on how we match our education with the jobs currently evolving in Guyana.
So that's a very interesting question, especially the practical realities of where we are right now, with the oil and gas sector being built out and built out rapidly, perhaps far more rapidly than our system would be able to cater for if we didn't immediately look at it. So Guyana historically and traditionally, as you all know, has been a academic country. So the classroom work has catered to academia and high academia and the traditional subjects mathematics, English, social studies, science, phys chem, bio, business, those things. We However, when you look at what is needed in the country and what is being hired in the country, who is being hired in the country, there is a dearth of skills, all of the sets that are needed once we have an oil type economy with construction of civil works and other oil related buildings and infrastructure going up. And so in our schools, we just introduced CVQ, which is the vocational qualification in the Caribbean. And so instead of a student choosing the pathway of what we know as traditional academia, you can actually choose to be trained in a practical, skilled way and exit high school not with only CXCs or CSEC, but exit high school with CVQs, which prepares you to go into one of our TVET institutions. Now, we already have TVET institutions in Region 2, Region 3, Region 4, Region 5, and Region 6 and Region 10. Currently, we are building well appointed TVET institutions in Region 1 at Mabaruma, in Region 3 at Fellowship, in Region 4 at Better for Acting, in Region 5 at Hopetown, in Region 7 in Martica, in Region 9 at St. Ignatius. And that is to allow for a choice of pathways or for the kind of technical training that is needed in this type of economy that moves us away from the traditional degrees that a university would traditionally and historically provide. And so we're trying to make sure that we're not only catering for the traditional types of professions and careers, but that we are from the school level um, trying to meet the needs of the country. We do have challenges, and any employer would tell you right now that there are serious challenges with skilled workers, very serious challenges. So much so that I know some people have begun to import those skills because we have limited numbers of people also in the country.
Yeah, could I
Okay.
just add just one point there?
Mhm.
Um, could UG assist in these developments through its own program reviews? How do you see that?
So UG has, I heard the vice president speaking on the University of Ghana today, and I actually heard him on the radio because I was in my car, and he was speaking of his personal view that the university should identify areas that we really need and make those their focus and become really, really strong in it. The University of Ghana served us well. It's a vision of Chetty Jagan. It was conceived by him, and it has been something that has been precious to the PPP and the respective PPP governments over the years. And it has served its purpose, and it continues to serve its purpose, has great value. But I also think complementing the University of Ghana has been some of these other programs that are both that have flexibility in the way people learn and the way people train, as well as in the timelines that they have for training and upskilling. And so I think the university is the best poised place to do exactly what you're asking. Look to see what we need, strengthen those programs, make sure it can accommodate more than it perhaps does right now, and look at how it can reform itself. I think they're currently looking. I know their plan is to have one in every house, at least one in every household, a graduate by 2030, I think, or in the program by that time. So they have strategic plans, and I think they're well poised to do exactly what you're saying.
All right. Thank you, Minister.
The
Professor
vice
Narayan.
chancellor said publicly a few days ago that the engineers, The engineering students are being soaked up and eaten up and absorbed by the oil and gas companies even before they graduate.
Yeah. Professor Narayan, your question to the minister. Professor Narayan, are you there?
Yes,
You have to
Profe-
unmute.
yes, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Now, before I ask my question, I just want to say that the expectations of a transformation in Guyanese education within the last 3 years is enormous, but sometimes people are impatient because with the technological advances that are taking place right now, with such rapidity, Guyana can hardly accommodate. So let's be real, because you're now trying to dredge yourself out of a colonial system that is so embedded within the country and to transform that into a highly technological based education system. It's going to take years. So that's one of the things I want to mention. And it might be contradictory to Professor Budu's comments, because even over here in the United States, they are struggling with that education too. I'm a part of that system. I know how it operates, and I know the problems of accommodation. Now, going back to the Guyanese reality, my my question is: does the school system? You mentioned psychology as an aside, but psychology is important to the development of children. So, what uh, what foundations are there within the school system, within each school, to deal with the psychological problems and the learning problems of students?
So as of last year, if it sounded like an aside, it wasn't meant to be at all. In fact, I think it may have been a weak example of mine to demonstrate the degrees that were not used by educators were also being pursued. So psychology would not have been the best choice um, from me. Maybe we look at teachers are doing chain, what do you call it, the logistics and chain management, um, that have nothing to do with education. So that was to demonstrate that they have an interest in upskilling, maybe even reskilling. But last year we um, decided that both because it was always needed, but also we saw particular and peculiar behavioral changes resulting from children staying home, and their social interactions with other children when they came back out. So every high school is supposed to have a staff dedicated to guidance and counseling, which is new to us. I know you're in the US and that's pretty common. You have a whole room with a person dedicated to that, and high schools have had that for a while, but we haven't. And so we have 87 of our schools out of our 100 schools now, that are 116, that have guidance and counseling officers, trained persons. Where we do not have them, it's simply because we don't have persons who are trained in that area, and that's mostly the hinterland schools. But we have teachers in those areas dedicated to dealing with issues that would ordinarily be dealt with by a counselor. Has it helped? I think it's a little early for us to measure whether it has or it hasn't. I think just anecdotally, I could say that it has clearly, because I think we would have been in a lot more trouble and dealing with a lot more issues if this weren't in place. I think it has helped. So, or let me put it this way: I don't believe Guyana is unique in defying, or that we have anything special that allowed us to defy the predictions of early school leaving or the phenomenon of dropouts. But we haven't seen our dropout numbers rising. And I think that's one of the reasons. These are persons who are not only first responders, but speedy responders to children who are being lost to the system. So I think, although it hasn't been long, and I know generally we don't want to measure progress except we have enough time to be able to scientifically measure that. I think the intervention is certainly has produced results, and given the fact that there are other countries that have shown the benefits of having these types of trained persons in their school environment, I think we're on the right track here.
Professor Narayan, you have a follow-up?
Yes, I have. I'd like to shift to the to post-secondary education for a minute.
Mhm.
Um, I know recently that both the president and the vice president talk about free university education, and I was wondering that UG cannot have branch campuses in all 10 regions, at this time. And I was just wondering if there are any efforts to bring the education to the students within the regions, one by online education or by having some sort of what over here we call certificate program or 2-year degree program within the regions, which can help to advance the students in the areas that are not well supported by post-secondary education currently.
So goal, that's the purpose of goal. Goal is an academy here that is a medium through which students, let's say Essequibo, where they do not have a University of Guyana. So they can go to universities in any of the countries I just spoke to you about online. And there's a wide range of programs that they can do, ranging from the type of qualifications, from certificates, degrees, masters, PhDs, but also the range of subjects that they can study. Very, very wide. Um, in the various universities that are known for or renowned for these programs. So that was the whole intention. And goal didn't come about because we're just clever. It came about for the same reason. When we were campaigning in the run up to the 2020 elections, um, Guyanese people, young people all across this country, said they would like to study, they would like to continue working or continue staying at home or staying in their farms, but be given the opportunity to study at renowned universities at no cost to themselves. And that's what this program is. It allows people to continue working and study online. It's an exclusively online program, or all the programs are online programs for at various universities, and the government pays for that. So that's why it's a scholarship program. The government pays the universities directly, and the student studies. So that was the whole intention: bringing tertiary education, post-secondary education to villages where it would never, where we simply cannot put down a university because it's not feasible. The numbers in the entire Region 8, if the entire Region 8 were to be able to access, it still wouldn't be feasible. But persons from Region 8 can access post-secondary education through this program, a variety of programs, a variety of qualification types.
Mhm. All right. Um, I think Professor Narayan, the government has approved over 21,000 gold scholarships so far. So they're on track with that. But Honorable Minister, before I know we have a few
Yes,
more minutes.
just to confirm, Uncle Dr. Tara, it is. We had promised 20,000 in 5 years, and I'm very happy to say that in 3 years we have 21,000, which does two things. It speaks to our efficiency and our desire to train as many people as we can, but it also speaks to the appetite of the Guyanese people to be trained in various areas. And so the fact that so many people with so many lined up waiting have jumped onto this program will tell you that there was a great need for it.
Okay, can you give us a brief update on the appointment of school welfare officers
Right. So the school welfare officers and the guidance counseling officer. School welfare officers are historically based in regions. So you would have five per region, seven per region, depending on how large the region is. And they'd go from school to school. That was inadequate. And so we're trying to place officers in the schools themselves, to be based in the school with still support from the welfare officers who are regionally based.
Yeah, that's wonderful because I know years ago they used to have school welfare officers visiting and any kind of issues with truancy, school
Yeah.
dropout, etc. They were highly respected, and I don't know what the situation is now. Okay, Dr. Ganga, your final question
Well,
or clarification.
yeah, just an overall comment in terms of strengthening the secondary schools curriculum by adding motivational components. I had run a summer transportation program where I had site visits and field trips. So I think the young adult would be able to develop perspectives so that they can think about their future jobs and what they would like to do with some of the knowledge that they will pick up through site visits and other professional talks that they will be exposed to. So these motivational components should be looked at and evaluated for each of the programs that we have discussed so far. What do you say, uh, Minister? You have any comments on that? Adding motivational components to existing programs.
Mhm.
So we have a program called HFLE, Health and Family Life Education, which I think the intention was to do just that. That started a while ago. I'm not sure I am comfortable with the level of its effectiveness. So we have um, been looking at whether it's serving its purpose, the purpose it intended to serve. I think it got perhaps a little bit too wide, a little bit too academic. I think what you want is some ethos back, like the moral talks and the pep talks and so on, back into the schools. It is my personal view that the HFLE curriculum got too academic. So instead of it being a pastoral type activity, it became a subject. The argument for keeping it a subject is if you don't put it on a timetable and make it a subject, then it isn't taken seriously. Surely there's a bridge between those two extremes. I know schools right now have dedicated time. For example, at Queen's College on Thursday mornings, all children are exposed to, in their individual classrooms, what they call pastoral care, which is the kind of motivational talk on various issues that you're talking about. I don't feel comfortable representing to you that that's happening at every single school because I don't believe it's happening at every single school. But I think there's definitely place for it, yes.
Mm. Professor Budu, your final comment.
Yeah. And I know Professor Narayan disagree with me that Guyana should pursue a reimagined knowledge system. Since this program is not a debate or a discussion, I will not argue my case. But I know the minister said that there's a shortage of technical skills in Guyana, and this is going to continue for a while. And what I'm saying here that Guyana should develop a knowledge system that uses the modern technology like AI and quantum computing, right, and new information in how people learn to produce a system that will allow us to get to our goals, at least in the technical areas of for the skills that we want to develop, very efficiently and effectively, right?
Mm.
And the current education system that we have, which just come and give people knowledge in the classroom and let them perform an exam, is not going to help us. So I don't want to argue that case here, but we can do that in another session. Now,
But
what I want to ask the
Professor
minister,
Bodo, I'm okay with arguing the cases.
no,
We
but I
are
think,
trying to reimagine not only us here, the entire Caribbean. How do we get children to think through more,
yeah,
problem solve more? That we're not just regurgitating content. They're even trying to set exams. I find that a conundrum in itself.
Mhm.
Trying to set exams so that we reason more in the exam room. I think the world is grappling with the same thing. How do we switch out from the traditional education where you come and you're taught slate in hand
Mhm.
and you just regurgitate knowledge and cram this into the heads of the receivers and make them more into people who can solve the world's problems. I think that's we're on the same page.
All
How
right.
that's done
All
in
right.
there is a
Professor Narang, your final comment.
Yeah, I don't want to be misconstrued that I'm against technological advances in the education system. So that's not the issue. I just want to be very emphatic on that. I just have another question with you. Um, I know that I've heard over the months, several months, what problem with policing in Guyana. And I was wondering if there is any linkages between your ministry, with the education ministry, and the Ministry of Home Affairs that controls the police. There's some linkages for professional development because police deals with people, they deal with all kinds of issues that are not militarized kind of issues. They are more behavioral types of issues. And I was wondering if your ministry have some linkages in terms of helping with that type of professional development for the police force.
no, the ministry is responsible for delivering education to nursery, primary, and secondary, some post-secondary institutions, and has an overall type of, because UG is run by a council, and has a specific law that dictates how it is to be governed. So no, we don't have any responsibility for training of adults like in mass, the police force and so on. I do know that the Ghana Police Force seeks out and does all kinds of different training using various organizations, sometimes the Ministry of Education. For example, they'd have training on domestic violence or trafficking in persons, or other types of training that is useful to them. The Ghana Police Force is also benefiting significantly from programs on the goal. I know they're doing some forensic. We have some forensic courses for degrees. We have some um, other programs that are specific to the police. In fact, they were sought after because the police force said they wanted them. And so, but to answer you directly, no, we are not training the Guyana Police Force. And while we are available to use our resources at various government places, we don't have any sort of direct contact with the adult members of the force now.
On that question, I would like to ask, since a few schools were burnt down, there are cases of arson.
Mhm.
What security measures have you put in place on these schools? Or
Well, both schools that went up for arson, which would be uh, Christchurch in Georgetown and Northwest Multilateral at Mabaruma, as well as the dorms at Madhya, because that was also arson. They all had security, and they all had security present at the time that the fires were lit. So schools are not without security. Across the country, we have security at schools. Um,
oh, well,
John?
that needs to be inquired into. Anyhow, we want to thank you, Honorable Minister. There are so many areas which we didn't cover. We would like to cover, but in an hour's time we can't do much. I know next week is your debate, and I know you will do exceedingly well. We are very impressed with your performance and work as a minister. You're working very hard, and you have a big ministry, probably one of the biggest ministry to deal with. And we wish you all the best for this year and beyond. And I hand you over now to Shamisa, who today happened to be her birthday too. On behalf of the Guyana Dialogue, we wish Shamisa, our host, happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Shanice.
birthday.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. Thank you, Minister Manickchand. We do have a question at this time from one of our viewers. Queen X is asking, so if foreigners want to come back and work to develop or enhance programs in the education sector, how can we do that?
So, we have a few persons who have remigrated that I think is going to add great benefit. I don't know if you know Dr. Julie Jailal, Dr. Jerry Jailal. They have begun working with us this month. So new they are that I haven't met them officially. I met them before, but not officially since they began working. I'm looking forward to them adding value to what we already have, and because they have a vast amount of experience in North America, particularly in the US. Um, and we have a couple from Canada who are back here also. The O'Tools. I think I got the name wrong. And we have a few persons who have come back. But if people want to come back, there's space here. There's space for the type of part-time employment. There's space for teaching. There's advisory capacity places. There are places where we have prototype type of development that we want done. We'd like you to supervise and work with X place until we get this to a better place that is defined. And so anybody who wants to come home should make contact with us. It mightn't be, salaries and so on might not be what you can earn given your years and your qualifications in a first world country. But I think you'd feel really satisfied and gratified with the value you're adding to our country, to your country. So coming back here would be a useful enterprise for anyone who wants to.
I hope that answers the question for our viewer. And Minister, before you leave us this evening, can you give us your closing remarks?
We're looking forward to implementing this budget. I think it's like we began by saying, it's very easy to get lost in the massive construction and infrastructural developments happening in Guyana. But we believe we have the duty to make sure we build out a Guyana that we'd all be proud of. That we build out adults, well, young adults who can participate and thrive in this country, who could compete internationally in any arena, who could lead the country eventually, who could add value to what we have here, and who could take the next generation forward. And so I think it's a big responsibility. I think it's um, far bigger, and we have to have a steady hand. We have to be completely conscious of what needs to be, incorporate best practices from places where it has worked. They have worked. I have an extremely competent team from the chief education officer to other education officers. I have a new PS who is a joy to work with, permanent secretary, young female Guyanese. I just feel like we're the best place we can to roll out what the country needs right now. I'm looking forward to doing that this year.
Thank you so much, and good luck on your debate next week. And to our entire panel, thank you so much for your interaction this evening. To all of our viewers, thank you so much. And Minister, thank you again for taking the time to be here this evening. Until next time, I'm your host, Shamisa Ali, and this is the Guyana Dialogue. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
David.
Shamisa. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you, panelists.